say, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And that's staggering at the time. But 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when you own nothing and are unhappy, right?
Hello, YouTube and their crypto enthusiasts, and welcome to another episode of Equibit Crypto. The clip you just saw was a clip with Russel Brand and Edward Snowden, where Edward Snowden is explaining how they are stealing all your money and how they are doing it in plain sight. So, what is he talking about here? I'll give you a clue. It is something to do with inflation. But before we continue discussing this, let's have another look at the clip to say what he's saying about it, and then I'll try to do what I do best, and that is to take things and break them down to my plain broken English. So enjoy the clip.
For example, the banking industry is going to war on savers, just sacrificing anybody who saved any money in order to avoid the debt collapse of all the governments that have overborrowed and all the companies that have overborrowed, and basically indentured the current growing generation, the youngest of the audience today that's watching this. Those people are intentionally, knowingly, willfully being screwed because of all of the political cowardice and poor decisions that said we don't want to face any hardship today, so we're going to put that on the shoulders tomorrow.
So, what is Edward actually saying here? He is saying that politicians have spent too much money and gotten the countries around the world, most of them at least, into too much debt. And they are going to solve this problem by stealing money from the people who are savers. And they will also steal money from the people who rely on pensions, because what is going to happen is that they will allow interest rates to stay low and inflation will skyrocket. We are already seeing it. I think last month was like 4 or 5%. Um, and these are just like the numbers the government report. These do not account for shadow inflation, which is a whole different thing. And if we think about this, in the 80s, so then we had the yield, which is like the government U.S. bonds. They were at 15%. So if you lend the government money, if you were saving, if you put your money in the bank, you would get something that is correlated to this. But what have we seen the last 40 years? We've seen uh, decline in the U.S. bond yield, all the way down to almost 0%. I think it was almost zero at one point for a short moment, and now it's hovering around 1.5. But guess what? This will continue to go down. It met resistance here, and it's going down because no politician want to do the responsible thing, and that is to issue monetary policy that is tightening, and in good times take a little bit of a recession and get back on track. No, they keep borrowing money and spending more money than they have, and then they will continue to print money and lower interest rate. And this put young people in a very peculiar situation because back in 1980s, you did not require a lot of capital in order to buy a house or a home. So you could do that when you were in your 20s. You could acquire enough capital by saving. Um, the first years when you were working, get some interest on that, and then you had enough capital to actually be allowed to get a loan. It was very tough, very tough paying back that loan with these high interest rate. But the difference is that you own something and you were paying it back because you got it when you were in your 20s. So by the time you were in your 30s, you had quite a lot of capital. But the thing now for the younger generation that is, as he says, being screwed is with a low interest rate. The asset price or the price of housing is so large that no 20-year-old person can buy a home and start a family. So we see this in the demographics. We see people are starting their family life in a later stage in life than they did earlier. And this is a problem because if this keeps staying at this price here, where or falling even further, the problem is that the asset prices, the price of house, the price of stock, the price of everything you can own, even crypto and housing, stock market, gold, everything will go up, and the young people will not have a chance to get in on this because the risk will seem to be very high. So they will just live off their salary and own nothing. And this is what he's warning against, because you are being robbed, because you will not be part of the asset bubble. And maybe you'll get in just when the bubble is about to burst, and you will be indebted for the rest of your life. And the government is also talking now about creating a digital currency. This is nothing to do with crypto. This is something completely different, where they can attach certain abilities to the money. Like if you have a job, you might get paid a monthly salary, but they will maybe say that, okay, if you haven't spent the money when the month is over, then the money is deleted. They can do all these kind of things with this new money they create. And it seems to me, I'm not denying that we have environmental problems, but it seems to me like some forces are trying to keep the youth occupied with these environmental issues, which is maybe one of the largest problems we ever going to face here on this planet, to get onto renewable energy. But to me, it seems like the government is taxing the people that they are screwing over, and the people, the younger generation, is applauding them for doing it. They're putting more tax while they own all the stocks in the companies that are going to benefit from this. So they take grabbing all your money with both their hands, and they're not willing to do anything to take responsibility. Because if they actually went in and did the responsible thing, which was during these booms, was to hold back a little bit, increase the interest rates, and try to normalize things, and then they would lose votes, because people would see, all right, well, the economy is not doing so good with this new guy in power. So they tried to kick the can further and further down the road, and now we are at the point where people are starting to wake up and saying, hey, wait a moment, if it's free to borrow money, why shouldn't I just borrow as much as I can and buy real stuff? Because the money are going to maybe uh, vanish, like degrade 7% a year. Maybe your buying power will decrease. And that brings me also to another point where they are robbing people, is that there haven't been real wage growth in the US and many places in Europe, at least in the US since 1970s. So every year, all the profits, they are going to the corporations, and nothing is going back to the people who are actually working. This is why we now see that the poorest part, or even like the middle class, is in a recession, and we see an increase in the wealth gap. That is because all the people that own all the assets, all the stocks, all the property, all the land, their value is increasing while your salary is actually decreasing in buying power. So this is what they talk about in this interview, and I hope this can help you to start at least owning something, because you need to own something for them not to be able to take all your money away, because your money in the bank, that it will decrease in value year over year over year until there is you can buy a soda with them. So maybe we need to think about what are we going to own, because we need to own something. And this is where some people have gone into Bitcoin and said, well, Bitcoin is the best asset in the world for us to own, because no one can take it away from you. No one can confiscate it. I mean, you can have, if you have a building in the United States, in New York City, someone can take that building from you. They can tax it to death. They can regulate. They can do all kind of stuff. But with Bitcoin and crypto, then they can do nothing. There is nothing to do, because there is an example of a harbor. I think it was somewhere in Monaco, or they decided that they would tax all the yachts in the harbor, because the people living there, they were getting a little bit envious, but everyone was making money, like in down restaurants down at the harbor. Everyone was benefiting from this. But some people found out that, yeah, let's put a yacht tax on the harbor. And what happened, of course, was that all the yachts just left and went somewhere else where there was no harbor tax. And the whole community died, because the restaurant were not making any money, and no harbor rent, or so they just lost everything. And that's the exact thing with crypto, is that if it get taxed in one place, it's so easy to just move it to another place where it is not taxed. And right now, I think that is going to be El Salvador. That might be what they're trying to do there, is they're going to try to be the crypto capital of the world. So I think that was it for today's episode. It was a short one, but it's very, very important one. If you want to watch the whole interview with Edward Snowden and Russel Brand, I really recommend that you do. It's a great interview. But this was just the part that was focused, because the whole interview is really about conspiracy theory. Um, but this was just a part that really applied to the situation right now with the high inflation we are seeing, and how the government is actually stealing the money from the people who are trying to save. So I will add this before I go, and that is, I think this is much the reason why Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is so popular among the youth, is because they say in order to get the capital they need, they cannot wait for stock markets. They cannot wait for the average gains they get in traditional investments. They need to take high risk for high reward, because they have very little money and little capital, and they need to risk that in order to get the capital they need in order to buy property. Because if we go to Bitcoin here and we see, yeah, there is high volatility, but that is the price you pay for these enormous gains. And right now, yeah, it can drop 50% in 2 weeks. But over time, we are climbing from it's the fastest growing thing in the world. So I think this is why younger people tend to go into more and take more risky trades, is because they realize they do not have time to wait for the stock market. And also the if you look at the stock market right now, it is at epic proportions. It's so high that it have never been higher on the Buffett indicators and a lot of other indicators who are signaling that it's very overbought and very expensive, and they do not want to be victim of a bubble that finally burst, because that bubble have to burst at one point as well. um, so they are taking more risk into Bitcoin, and that is why I think cryptocurrency is going to do well in the future. It's because simply because of demographics. It's because younger people have it and want it, and older people don't have it and don't want it. So what happened to, well, we will have more and more younger people, and older people, they leave this world. So by definition of demographics, Bitcoin, the possible amount of holders is going to grow, and therefore also the price will appreciate. Well, in stocks, we might we might come to a place where we cannot grow the economy, and we will have a huge recession, and stocks might take 30 years to recover. But in crypto, things can recover within weeks. So I think that was it for this episode. I'll see you all next time, and best of luck. This is, of course, not any financial advice. This is just my opinions. So until next time, take care, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.